Okay, it wouldn't be a Saturday unless I had a trivia question. And the question is, which president signed the most executive orders?
FDR.
Roosevelt.
Obama?
Trump.
Aha, FDR. Our speaker knew the right answer. You have to keep in mind, though, he had 3 terms. So on the average, he was not the highest. In fact, Woodrow Wilson had 1,800. Oh, FDR had a little over 3,000. So you divide that by 3, it was 1,200 a year. The others are listed, but I especially want to mention that we've got our Blue Wave auction, March 13th, and that'll be at Quail Creek. Pardon me? 15th, I'm sorry, 15th. And they're going to honor women of Arizona. Very good idea, I think. So, with that, I will introduce our speaker. So, James Ertel. James and I worked on a small project some time ago. We didn't meet, so this was kind of nice to... Is this your signature shirt? Seems to me it's the same one that's in your picture.
It'll make sense later on.
Okay.
Maybe.
So James is going to talk to us about AI, the good, bad, and the ugly, and I'll let you take it over. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Now, I have a loud voice, I think, so everybody can hear me, I'm assuming? Okay. So, AI has been available to the general public for about 2 years. So it's a revolutionary, but it's relatively a new technology, and all technology takes time to grow. If we go back to 2014 and a TED Talk by Jeremy Howard about the revelation that his team and some other teams working worldwide came up with, computers can learn on their own. They don't have to have written code, that meticulous line after line after line of code in order to work. And what Jeremy Howard's team found was that computers had a huge ability to process information but not put it together. Now, I'm assuming that all of you can see the airplane behind me. And a computer could figure that out. What a computer couldn't figure out is where the airplane go. We use our reasoning, our logic. We know what the tail end of an airplane looks like. We know a hangar is where we park our airplanes. Cessna, you might know, makes airplanes. So that started this whole thing about what we're calling AI, or artificial intelligence. And a year ago, there was only about 6 or 7 companies that had public access to. They've been working on it, obviously in labs for a long time. In the last year, everybody is trying to get into this AI role, elbowing people out of the way and trying to figure out what can we do with it. And it's gotten to be quite a crowded field. In fact, so crowded that several of the companies have actually tried to relabel their AIs to make them look more human, more fun, more soft and cuddly. And I want to introduce a new word for you today, or several hopefully, but LLM, large language models. All of these things on here are large language models. These are the computers that have gone out on the internet and scraped and gathered all the copyrighted information and brought it into them. And they've become huge. So let's talk a little bit about the hardware that it runs on. Because you all know what a computer is, right? It's just a small little box. AI runs on servers, and servers don't need screens, they don't need keyboards, they don't need speakers, because they only talk to other servers. So a server is about the size of an old DVD player, and we put them in racks. We put the racks next to each other, and that's a full-size human walking around in a server farm, a web farm, I can't stand there because it's going to make the speaker thing. These data centers chew up a lot of electricity, and because there's more and more people building them, they've actually gotten into kind of being a bad environmental footprint. They draw tremendous voltages and current off of the national grid. There are companies saying we're going to fire up old coal plants to supply our data center. One company actually wants to fire up a defunct nuclear reactor. ChatGPT, probably the most well-known AI. It was the first one on the market. It has 350,000 servers that are, and you know how your computer gets hot on the bottom where it's doing all the work, right? Think about 350,000 of them running, and all the air conditioning that needs to cool those down. So they do have kind of an environmental thing.
How does this differ, these data centers, from traditional data centers that were the backbone of the internet?
The data centers, web farms, I read one article, they were calling them data aggregation points. I thought that was it's simply their size.
Or they're just more of
They're
adding to the...
yeah, they are, like I said, 350,000 servers and everything it takes to do it. The other thing that's remarkable about these, computers are always talking about bits and bytes, right? AI works on tokens, and so far it's got about a little over 300 billion tokens. And we're not going to go into it a lot, but you don't have to read the first paragraph. But it shows you how it takes copyrighted information, takes it off the web, breaks it up, and sends out word by word almost into all these different servers. Pretty much one word is one token. A long word like misunderstanding might be 3 tokens. And strangely enough, ChatGPT is 4 tokens. One for chat, one for G, one for P, and one for T. So look at the bottom sentence. A cat runs in a meadow. Cat runs in a meadow is a pretty simple English sentence, right? It is something that is doing something somewhere. And these aren't, ChatGPT is not a database. It is not like when your bank account or your bank goes in and says, this is how much you have in. It is actually putting these sentences together from all this random information that is put together. And about a year ago, we kind of laughed at it because it would make funny sentences. And we get something like, the green cat runs in a fluffy meadow. Because how it runs, just like children might misuse words or put sentences together. But in the past year, because it's self-learning, it's deciding, well, wait a minute. I have green trees, green grass, green shrubbery. Maybe it should be a green meadow, because I have fluffy dog, fluffy hamster. So it is actually doing pretty good at not making silly sentences anymore, what we call hallucination, but actually makes sense of a fluffy cat runs in a green center. English is hard, right? Yeah. Take this sentence. I read about a reed, but the book I read wasn't read. You all understood that sentence, right? Because we used reasoning with it. If I said to you, I've got to get somebody to get the bats out of my attic, you think it is the animal bat, not the baseball bat.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, good.
Okay.
The people in the back can see it a little better.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Is that okay, Paul? Sorry, thank you.
So a ring can be something you wear on your finger. A ring can be a sound. A ring can be a shape. We can even say, you've heard people say, I'll ring you up over here. Kind of an acronym, because cash registers, when they cranked it, used to ring. And now it just sounds silly to say, I'll beep you up over here. So these homonyms and homograms are confusing as AI is trying to put together all this text information, that copyrighted information that is taken off the web. And then when you throw in the software, English, and all that, it gets kind of confusing. So let's step back a minute. Remember when we were kids, summertime? There was no school the next day. We'd eat dinner. We'd run out. We'd meet up with our friends. And we'd sit around for hours thinking of binary aggressive algorithms and mutating flowchart. It's okay. You can raise your hand. I did not have that bad of a childhood. Let me ask it a different way. Have any of you ever played the game 20 Questions? Or I Spy with My Little Eye? Or charades? Or if you like British TV series, charades. Book. It's a binary question, yes or no. No book, throw all the books away you've ever thought of. Is it a movie? Yes or no. It's binary. Throw all the movies away. Is it a person? And suddenly you think of, I got to move the microphone, you think of every person you've ever heard of, you've ever met, you've ever read about, you've ever seen on TV. Living or dead? We just got rid of a lot of them, right? Is it a man or a woman? Even less. Fictional or non-fictional? So in 2 or 3 guesses, we've actually narrowed down what person we're trying to identify. And this is what AI is doing on those computers. It is simply using a set of algorithms to decide for itself, not coding to make it think this, that, and like we've traditionally done computer coding, but it is thinking for itself and going through these regressive algorithms, a mutating flowchart, and it comes up with the answer, but a fluffy cat runs in the meadow. So I read this book, and it actually said, and it's kind of important, we start thinking that AI can think. It cannot. It is still a machine. It is still simply running algorithms to come up with things. The thing about AI, though, it will adjust those algorithms itself to give us better answers. Now, this is a copyrighted book, but I have it in PDF form. I'll be glad to send it to you if you respect the copyright and delete it when you're through with it. And if you don't want to read a 300-page book, maybe you'd like a brochure. I can send that to you. Or if you started working on ChatGPT and have played with it a little bit, have a book for that. Even if you started writing your own algorithms and run your own AI, you can do that. Or I left some business cards in the back. I have some business cards up here. And I'll be glad if you send me an email. I can send you where to get all these books and a lot of other books about computers for free. So AI shouldn't be a mystery. It's just like talking to a juvenile. Remember though, like I said, it scrapes almost everything off the internet. Wikipedia and Google are the 2 main contributors to ChatGPT and the large language models. Remember, Wikipedia, if you have an email address, you can edit facts in that. They aren't really checked as rigidly as, say, the Encyclopedia Britannica. And if you use Google Docs, Google Mail, Google Teams, Google Storage, it's a great company. But in that little box, you say, I agree to the terms. Anything on their servers, they are going to scrape and use to train. They're not copying what you say. They're not even storing any personal data in a file. It is simply shipped off to all those 350,000 servers to look at words. It's kind of how we learned, right? Remember, we were given 26 characters and said all the words you're going to use the rest of your life are going to be these 26 characters. And then first grade, they made words out of those characters. And then sentence and paragraphs. So everything that you know and everything you think about is really that compilation of all the stuff you've heard, the words you've heard, and you put those back into sentences when you talk to one another. Everything that I've heard and read about AI is what I'm trying to relate today. So AI is not copying you, it is trying to think and relate to you. So since it is copyrighted, and we all know the legal system really likes to use a previous case to go ahead and how did we decide that case? And strangely enough, this circus poster from 1903 might be one of the Supreme Court cases that's going to decide copyright issues of all this information that these large language models have scraped. Copyright is always in the it came in the Constitution. It came in the Constitution before right of free speech, right of assembly, right of religion. And it is Article 1, Paragraph 8, as you can plainly read, gave us our copyright law. I know the Continental Congress was a little short on money, but boy, it seems like they could have gone down to Walmart, gotten a $40 inkjet printer, and we could read our own Constitution. So this is the basis of copyright law. The only 3 words you need to know: discoveries, that's actually an invention, and you cannot patent an idea, you can't copyright an idea, you actually have to produce it. Writings, that's pretty self-explanatory, and for a limited time. So it was 45 years before anybody even brought a lawsuit about copyright. And then the justices looked at it and said, yes, composers, that sheet music you're writing out by hand, you can copyright that. And then a performance could be copyrighted, the circus poster could be copyrighted, and then they ran into a problem with the player piano. Because the composers who had a copyright on their music said, they're playing my tunes, but I'm not getting any money. Justices looked at it, came back and said, you know, that reel of vellum with holes punched in it, nothing at all like a piece of paper that with ink dots on it. Supreme Court ruled against the composers, said, nope, they don't have to pay you royalty. So you can see where this kind of relates to AI. But they did write in the end of the sentence, or in the end of their decision, that we don't understand this new technology like a player piano. It's way too complicated for us to figure out. We're directing the legislature to start to make copyright laws, and that's where we're getting all these copyright laws and the cases of people saying they stole my saying, they stole this, they're imitating me when they really aren't. You may remember a year ago, Steamboat Willie finally came out of copyright protection. 95 years after it was first copyrighted. Remember the Constitution said a limited time? 95 years seems long, but these are valuable, right? And sometimes copyright law is known as Mickey Mouse law, if any lawyers in here, because every time Steamboat Willie was going to go into public domain, in fact, Disney and a lot of other companies went to legislature and said, extend it, extend it, extend it. By the way, Mickey Mouse is still copyrighted. You can't use Mickey Mouse like you can Steamboat Willie. And it should be obvious to you how completely different those two characters are. Yellow shoes, no yellow shoes, got gloves, doesn't even have hands, He's wearing a hat, Mickey's not, but they are valuable. But the reason I talked about the circus poster and that, we kind of understand text, right? So when AI scraped off all the text and started using it to try to make up its own stories, its own sentences, it said, you know what, I'm finding a lot of pictures out there. And all of a sudden, a lot of graphic AI firms were formed, and they went out and they were scraping off pictures. And people became worried about it, especially digital artists. And if they can create pictures, who's going to buy my picture? So this gets kind of confusing because I can use AI in different ways 17 times in one sentence. AI was used to make a poison pill to put into digital pictures or pictures that go on the web so that AI can't scrape it off, or if AI does scrape it off, then the code that AI wrote into the picture, AI can't figure out. But AI is always thinking. It doesn't go to sleep 24 hours a day. It's always thinking. AI is now trying to figure out what AI wrote to make AI so they couldn't read the AI pictures the AI scraped off the internet. See, we use reasoning again. So we did a lot of these, and they're fun. Why not try something new, right? So I asked AI, one of the crayon. I think it's pronounced crayon, but I'm just going to say crayon. Have you ever wondered what a horse sitting in a lawn chair drinking a beer would look like? That's what Crayon's AI looks like. With the last name of Ertel and the second grade playground taunt of Ertel Turtle, where's a girdle? I'm over it. But I asked, what does a turtle do on vacation? And of course, turtles live in the sea, tortoises live on land. I'm not sure how, I don't know if you can see it or not, but how a tablet's going to work underneath water. And for an animal that lives underwater, I don't know why they need a flotation device, but AI did. I even asked AI, I said, what does my audience look like when I'm talking about AI? You can look around and see if any of those people showed up today.
You didn't get copyright on my picture.
Well, and that's a good. She just said you can get about copyright. Who owns the copyright on these pictures? I didn't draw these pictures. So do I own the copyright? If you sit down with Google Docs or Word and you type out the Great American Novel, Microsoft or Google doesn't own that copyright on that work. You do. But a legal question working its way up to the courts, can AI software sitting on these computers own a copyright for the work they started? Now, I know these are funny, and I even said I want a cartoon horse. I said cartoon this and that. But if you were watching TV during December, especially if you were watching football, you saw a lot of Coca-Cola commercials. And every year they used to have artists and animators make those ones with the polar bears drinking the Coca-Cola, and the trucks are coming to town. A lot of fun, right? Maybe not. Magic AI and ChatGPT seem to think they own the copyright here. And as a graphic design artist, there's been a bunch of articles written. If you have AI do your logo, do you own the rights to that logo? So there's a lot of litigation and thinking about AI is great, and it can do wonderful things, and it will do even more wonderful things, trust me. But what about the other things as it evolves and comes into our legal system? So you kind of know now what AI is, large language models, graphics. Those two words that people never wanted to hear in school. Pop quiz. Which one is the real Picasso? The one on the left or the one on the right? Kind of hard to tell a Picasso, isn't it? It is the one on the right. And what about photographs? I mean, we just went through an election, right? So we have to use discernment now about what are we seeing. Which one's real, a real picture, and which one is generated by AI? The octopus is real. The clownfish was generated by AI. 2 for 2. Are you right both times? Big switching. So no longer electricity with zeros and ones running everywhere, just beams of light running everywhere. And I got to do some graphic design work for a venture capital company that's working with the U of A, and they have a patent that can reduce the power consumption of chips like this by 1,000 times. So AI is going to bring problems, and AI is going to hopefully help solve problems. The other reason large LLMs will go away, you saw these. This is a picture of AI companies, and this has almost doubled since I gave my first AI talk about a year ago. So health, logistics, banking, financing, medicine, name a topic, and there are companies that are just specializing with artificial intelligence in that area. If you think about it, when you roll your recycling down to the curb so it can be picked up, do you need to know everything you learned in education, a career of work? Do you need to know everybody you've ever met, talked to, know every TV show, every movie you've ever watched? Nah, you just need to push the plastic container to the end of the street. So these are all very, very specialized companies. So sometimes we get knowledge that we don't know we need. So here's some products where AI, the big bad AI, has actually been put into products we use every day. John Deere developed a sprayer. If it's a plant, we're trying to grow it, it'll squirt it with fertilizer. If it's a weed and we don't want it to grow, it squirts it with a fertilizer. In less than a year, just the people that bought this John Deere equipment, that big boom that hangs out the back of a trailer, 8 million gallons of herbicide not sprayed on our food, washing off into there. All at 12 miles an hour. So it doesn't have to go slow. A couple of months ago, a company called Carbon Robotics. And they don't spray fertilizer, but if they see a weed, they zap it with a laser. So no herbicide going in. Again, these are just attachments that go on the back of that. It is easy to draw an autonomous car on a PowerPoint slide. Something different to go ahead and get in a car without a driver. And there's music playing in the car. But if you ever get to Phoenix, go up for lunch, go up to visit a friend, call Waymo. It's really kind of cool. Take your phone, it knows where you are. You can trace your cab coming to you, has your initials in the display on top of it, pulls up, you unlock it with your phone, you get in, seatbelt, start my ride, and off it drives. And people often ask me, was there any difference? And I say yes. Waymo actually follows the rules of the road. We were pulling out of a 2-lane road onto one of those 6-lane roads up there and going to make a left-hand turn. And then we had to turn right in about a block anyway. I would have, most of us would have, just made that big wide turn all the way into the right-hand lane, right? Waymo actually turns left, signals, son of a gun, signals to change a lane, signals to change a lane, gets in the right turn lane, signals, and changes the lane again. And there have been problems. People in San Francisco were putting a cone on it. And of course, if it was a real driver, they'd get out, yell at the person, knock the cone off, and drive away. They fixed that problem. They have way less accidents than normal people do. And I guess my question is, do you want a really smart car taking you from point A to point B? Or your Lyft driver trying to watch a movie while he's driving you? You're going to see more and more robotic type things come up and specialized for air search and rescue. They can spot humans a lot quicker and cover a lot more ground than 30 or 40 people trying to walk in a straight line looking for somebody lost. They have robots that can go and do basic triage. Are you alive? Are you dead? Retrieve the live ones. So things like that will let robots be put in harm's way, and instead of the young men and women who now go into the burning buildings, go into sites like that Palestine, Ohio fire, where it was toxic stuff in the air. We can lose a few robots or two. No one cares, right? Until they form a union, and then the union will care. But a new company using some of this AI technology and some robotic technology actually has built this thing that people that can't walk can now have like this outside braces and have mobility on their own and not spend it in. And we know everything keeps getting smaller and smaller, right? And so eventually this outside frame is what's helping this woman walk will become a frame that goes maybe inside your clothes. Or I was talking to a doctor who does surgery, and of course, like if you break your back and you are in a wheelchair, your brain still works, your muscles still work. It's just that signal to move it doesn't get there. Well, they have a chip that they put into a paraplegic, and he can move items around on a computer screen. Step 1. Step 2, a chip in your leg. Would we let people who are paralyzed, who have suffered an injury, all of a sudden use this AI technology to make them mobile again? Ray-Ban, sunglass people, showed up and they partnered with Meta and to make smart glasses. So the good thing, people won't be walking around like this all the time. The bad thing, now they're reading on their glasses, they'll be walking around like this, trying to focus on what's on their lens. But I had a guy come up after I gave a very similar speech in January, and he said, I have one of those pairs of glasses. They're kind of cool. He goes, it just did a new firmware load on them. And now, he said, I don't speak Spanish, but if someone's speaking Spanish to me, it will do in-time translation and tell him in English what the person is saying in Spanish. Kind of cool, right? Any Star Trek people in here? Computer, their little chip thing there did all that translation. And here closer to home, Tucson, in November, one of the care homes up in Tucson has switched to all AI-enabled cameras. Because, one, we can't expect a human to go in front of 30 or 40 cameras and sit there all day. There's breaks, there's lunch, they talk to other people. AI can do that. And the AI cameras that were installed, they can tell the person sitting on the bed leaning over, is it a respiratory or a cardiac event? Or are they just tying their shoes in the morning? Or if the person's laying down on the floor next to the bed, is it because they're trying to retrieve the reading glasses that rolled off the bed? And we all know when it rolls off the bed, it always bounces under, right? It never bounces on the outside. But you can tell, because it's watching all the time, it can tell, yeah, they're just getting their glasses. No, there's some type of event and they fell. But this care home now says they will be able to respond in less than 75 seconds to every event. So another question for you. How many of you know all about AI, feel completely comfortable using AI, and use it every day to enhance your daily life? So for everybody else except the young man that held his hand up, remember this about us. We could read and write script. We could add, subtract, multiply, and divide without a calculator. We could unfold a map and get across the state or across the country. Maybe we couldn't fold it back up, but we could unfold it without something saying turn left, turn right. And I still maintain that the TomTom, the most common command it was always giving was recalculating, recalculating, recalculating. We know how to use this. We suffered through that. And most of us have taken smartphones, and to a great extent, nobody uses everything in their smartphone, but we've learned to make calls, maybe a text, maybe an email, go on some apps, order food, to these things. And of course, they know where you are all the time, and as we sit here with our phones on, there's probably more than one LLM scraping that data off the servers saying, why are all those people at the shopping center?
There's a sale at Ace.
Huh?
There's a sale at Ace.
There's a sale, yeah, there's a sale, but that's over there, and it knows the difference. So I'm going to assume most of you have used one or multiple of these programs. You know, Word, a spreadsheet here or there, PowerPoint, something like that. You know they all have AI built into them now. They will all help you out. And they all have a microphone built into it. I am dyslexic and a really poor typist. So once I pound out one or two paragraphs, I spend more time fixing the spelling, rearranging the words the way they're supposed to go, or putting in words that I've left out. Now, to do an email, to write something, hit the microphone button and I just talk. And it even has gotten used to me because instead of saying the word fabulous, I am known to say fabulous. But it spells it the right way. So try, if nothing else, without going to any AI or to any large language model, just try it on some of the programs that you're already using every day. If you want to download a ChatGPT into your phone or to your tablet, it also has a microphone. And you can push it and say, I have a zucchini, some wild rice, and ricotta cheese. What can I make for dinner? Wait about 4 seconds and it goes ahead and tells you that. And I will also tell you that if you're watching your sugar levels or A1C level, you can substitute farro for the rice and it's just as good. And now that it's gotten cold and snowy to our friends at the north, and you get that call, yeah, I was thinking about coming down and visiting you. I have friends coming down to Green Valley. Where can I take them? And it just starts showing you a list of all the places we can go for ourselves or go. And you can even go, yeah, but it looks like it's going to rain. Can you give me indoor venues? And it goes, sure, I'll do that. I don't care. So usually new technology is getting started in it and then realizing we really like it. So I do a lot of graphic design for 501c3s, and I was talking to Sue Coley, who runs Parkinson's Activity Center here in Green Valley. And she goes, can you help us write a volunteer manual? And I said, because I didn't really want to do it. And I said, sure. I said, why don't you use AI? Eyes got big. She literally pushed herself back from the desk she was sitting at. And I showed her the wild rice and zucchini recipe. I showed her this. And then I said, just start talking about how do you open and close this place? So she said, okay, well, you'd have to unlock the door and reset the thermostat and open the game room. And all of a sudden, 2 pages, nicely formatted, came out. Now, there's mistakes in it. They don't have a manager, so they would have to call one of their monitors, right? They'd have to change that. And most of us, I think, find it's easier to kind of edit after we have something on paper than when we sit there and look at the blank piece of paper or that blank screen and where do we start typing. So use stuff like that. Use it as much as you need to use it, but it is not going away. It is going to be around probably for a long time. We thank you. And is there time for any questions?
From what you're telling me, or from what I understand anyway, I think what you're saying is that AI is good at problem solving and designing and creating, but it doesn't really have the control of an engineer, for example, that agricultural machine that was zapping with lasers the weeds. That was a design that was created by AI, but AI, I guess in a sense, indirectly controls it, but it's not making its own decisions about how it operates. Is that right? Okay.
The question was, AI can sometimes go off the rails a little bit. So can a 7-year-old that knows the same amount of that vocabulary we do. So AI did help the engineers and scientists at Blue River Technology, which is owned by John Deere, to make that machine that, by looking at a plant 2 inches high, says this is what we're growing, this is a weed, to go ahead and spray that. It is going to get smarter and smarter and better and better. And I think some people think AI, they think of Arnold Schwarzenegger and the Terminators, and they're going to come and take over the world, and I don't see that. I see it getting smarter and letting a lot of stuff. There was an article in the paper here not too long ago about drugs based on your DNA. And I know a lady who was a researcher for Merck, and she said this quite a few years ago, that eventually drugs will be made. Give us your DNA, we'll make this drug for you. But there's just so many possibilities. A researcher can only look at one drug for it takes 3 or 4 years to work through all the problems of it. AI can go ahead and work through 1,000 drugs overnight, and it works 24 hours a day.
Well, I was wondering about replacing people. I was reading that, like in Hollywood, for instance, all the people that did the set designs and the costumes and stuff like that, they can do that on a computer now. And you won't even know that the background is computer generated. And where are all those people are?
Will AI disrupt the workforce?
Yes.
Yes. The answer is yes. Name a technology it didn't. The telephone put out of business the telegraph. The locomotive put the canal owners out of business.
Horse and buggies.
Horse and buggy was put out of business. When's the last time you talked to an operator to place a long distance call? And yet, up until recently, the Bell system, up in the mid-'80s, had 200,000 well-paying jobs for that type of technology. So yes, it will. I don't have the answer. I wish I did. But people will be displaced.
What do they do then? What should we train for?
I don't know. I was talking to a craftsman the other day, and you hear a lot about AI probably still doesn't have hands and feet and can do things like plumbing, electricity, and craft jobs, and they're still good paying jobs. I don't know, but I do know technology will never be stopped. I jokingly say there was somebody standing out in front of the cave saying, nope, don't bring fire into the cave. It's going to burn us all up. Here's a question for you. 125 years ago, a new technology, extremely divisive. There were people saying yes, there were people saying no, editorials, there was a hot society battle on it. Does anybody remember or think they know? Huh? No, not the cotton gin. Electricity. Who said electricity? Got it. It was electricity. 125 years ago, should it be brought into the house? And I think it worked out pretty well. It put candle makers out of work. And there's always going to be discourse against technology, and it will be used for something bad. I mean, we had scammers and cheats long before the internet. The Nigerian prince had to actually write a letter and mail it, right? Yeah. The Ponzi scheme that gets its name from Charles Ponzi back in the 20s. When the telegraph was introduced, there were scams going on there. So I don't know, but I do think a lot of technology has worked out better than my grandfather could ever think. And I had, before I take any question, I had someone email me with a question about the announcement by Trump of $500 billion going to AI. And I think sometimes it's just, the article that's written. So I did some real quick look at it. Private industry in the last 10 years has spent almost $1 trillion trying to develop AI. It's not cheap. ChatGPT costs $750,000 a day to run. They've already burned through about $11 billion. And they're projected to lose $5 billion this year. They got financing for $6 billion more. Again, a graph I found, and it only goes up to 2022, but the ramp up in spending. So a couple of articles I read at different places, and I always encourage read articles in different places, and you get the same answer. It might be true. That the $500 billion that has been mentioned was only going to be $100 billion to start with. And no offense, but in our federal budget, $100 billion is a rounding error, right? I mean, it's not. But the demand for these data centers, the demand for cutting edge technology, the United States government funds research into health, research into aerodynamics, my friend at U of A, to develop a lot of stuff. So, I don't know. I mean, I know I was asked to do that, and that's how much it is expensive to put together 350,000 computers and get them to work.
Okay, appropriate question I've been trying to ask for a while, but really fits in now. So can I download ChatGPT for free? And how long is it? If so, how long is it going to be free, or how are they going to recoup the money?
If you have 350,000 servers in your garage, you can download it. It is an entity up there, so you can download the app. It is free. You can pay and get it a little bit faster, but you can download it and start asking its questions. And remember, it's going to remember everything you type in there. So don't plan a crime on ChatGPT and think you're going to get away with
The
it.
new version 11, Word has Copilot, which...
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I said, all of Apple and Google and all, they all have their own AI built into it. And I was just told by Microsoft, I used the Microsoft product, that we were charging $15 a month for it, but now it's free because you have the Office.
How does the competition with energy go with the whole cryptocurrency thing that's grabbing all kinds of electricity as well? Are they together?
How does AI and cryptocurrency, it runs on servers, and they're big service centers,
Are they the same?
and they're not the same centers, no.
So we've got double the huge energy thing.
Oh yeah, in fact I got These are homes. This is what a data center looks like. So here's 2 data centers in suburban Washington, D.C. And they're considered a clean industry, right? Because it's just a computer. There's no waste, no smokestack or anything. But they have a constant from all the fans running and stuff like that. So, and yeah. I mean, a lot of things run computers. Amazon runs computers and has data centers so that when you buy a pair of shoes, it tells, do you want socks and you want strawberry cookies with it, because you're putting together 3 years ago you got those cookies.
I wondered about, you talked about the good side about it, but hasn't the EU passed some laws regarding the use of AI? It's a wide open west out in the United States now. I mean, there's no.
The EU has tried to, but how do you? It's hard to limit a technology like this. You can regulate it to death. You can shut it down. I'll give you another example of history. I like history. In 1291, Venice became the glassworking capital of the world, just kind of by accident. And their kilns to work with this new glass, well, they ran 900 to 1,000 degrees. The good citizens of Venice were scared. They had the ruling people say, no more glass working. And they took to pitchforks and torches, literally, rounded up everybody, destroyed their kilns, and made a move to an island a mile away. We still have glass. It's hard to stop any of these technologies. I think the best is you put, like in bowling, where they put the bumper things in so you don't actually go in the gutter, stuff like that. But 535 people are going to have probably 700 or 800 ideas on how to control it.
Counseling with artificial intelligence?
I don't know. The question was replacing people, are they doing counseling with artificial intelligence? I could look that up and see if there's an app that does that, But like I said, I don't dismiss the idea of the workers that say your job is no longer valuable to us. But it does, it's part of that.
There's a curious thing about technology, and this has probably gone back to 1291, but one of the things that I think everybody in our generation will remember is how technology was always being promoted as being this almost magical element that was going to give everybody so much more free time, our lives are going to get easier because of technology. But the reality, in a sense, is that productivity increases because of technology, but it doesn't necessarily make everybody's life simpler, and in a lot of ways it can make it more complex.
Was that sometimes technologies, that everything's going to be, easy and no one has to do anything. It does make life more complex. You think about, it's different complexities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got time for about 2 more questions.
Okay, 2 more questions.
Just a comment. Kids who are in grade school today will have jobs in the future that have not yet been invented. My daughter, my son works for Google. My daughter does PR for biotech companies. So kind of go along with the question. As regards to people today, yeah, that's another issue. But kids will have jobs in the future that have not yet been invented.
And certainly computers have generated more jobs than they ever eliminated. So, last question.
As the computers, the big computers, and going down to small ones, is it possible like these centers would become much smaller and more energy efficient over time?
The question started out, and I'm not picking on you, is it possible? And the answer is yes. Will computers become smaller and smaller? We won't need the big centers. I'm going to go back up one. My grandfather. It's it's always good to try to sneak your grandfather into an AI presentation.
Yeah, my grandfather, for sure.
When he was born until he was like 20 years old, horse and buggy, steam locomotive, right? And then he saw the car, telephones, radio with picture, which we call TV. He even saw color TV pictures coming back from the moon. When he was in his 20s, and I guess my great-grandparents had no concept of, let's just say, the air traffic we use today. We can fly to Denver for lunch and be back in Green Valley for the early bird special. There's no way that they could actually think that was going to happen when they saw people with cardboard taped to their arm jump out of a tree flapping their arms, and. So is it possible? I think obviously technology always gets everything smaller, and I would like to think that eventually it'll solve fusion, make it the size of a shoebox, and that will run my personal pod that I can throw a sandwich and a book in, go in and say, take me to see my grandson in LA in 2 hours. Probably I won't see that, but
I'm going to have to wait for Beam Me Up Scotty.
There's other physics problems with that.
Yeah, my grandfather came across in a covered wagon, and then on his 50th wedding anniversary, they flew to Hawaii for their anniversary. So stuff happens.
Wow.
Let's give him a big round of
Thank
applause
you.
for all of this. I know some of you have spoken about what do I do now. I put on the back, here are 10 things that you can do now. 2 at the top of the list, stay engaged and help Democrats. So thank you all for turning out for this meeting. It's great. We'll see you in a couple weeks. And thank you all for being here. Have a great day.